Hey, what's up, guys? One more video today. I just want to do a prospect preview for the 2020 NFL Draft, the upcoming game tonight between Michigan and Washington. It comes on at 8 p.m. on ABC. Let's start with talking about some 2022 NFL Draft prospects on the Michigan Wolverines. Of course, it all starts and ends with Aidan Hutchinson. I'm not sure you can hear all the trucks behind me, but you can probably hear that noise coming from the shopping center over there. It starts and ends with Aidan Hutchinson for Michigan. He's an edge rusher. He's in his senior season, or basically his senior season. He's been there for quite a while now at this point. He has a sack and 4 tackles coming into the game already. He's a borderline first-round pick. I think some people are higher on him than others. I think there's really a big disparity between his ceiling and his floor as an NFL prospect. I think he could go as low as maybe the 3rd or 4th round, go as high as the middle of the 1st round. This is a very interesting edge class. There's a lot of guys that really fall into that category of a big season could really promote them up to being borderline top 15 picks, and a lot of guys who, if they had a bad year, could really drop down to that 3rd, 4th round range. But Aidan Hutchinson, to me, so far, seems like a guy who's going to be closer to that 1st round group than anything else. Someone else we have to keep an eye on. Daxton Hill, he's a junior safety for them. Already has 6 tackles coming into this game. Daxton Hill's a guy I know, the Draft Network, if you've ever heard of them, TDN, is very high on Daxton Hill, where he ranks among their prospects. PFF is not as high on them, Pro Football Focus, but they still both view him as one of the better safeties in a loaded safety class. So I keep an eye on those 2 players from Michigan. I think they're the biggest prospects for them in this game. Other guys to keep an eye out for, senior wide receiver Ronnie Bell, who had a really good season back in, I think it was 2019, 2020 this past year, obviously with all COVID stuff. Michigan only played a handful of games. It's hard to really process any of that and keep that all in mind. So go back to 2019, Ronnie Bell had a pretty good year. Running back Hassan Haskins is another player to keep an eye on. He's a senior as well. Also senior or graduate student right tackle Andrew. Oh, I should look at the pronunciation for this name. Andrew Stueber, I believe is how you say his name. He's the right tackle for them. A lot lower expectations for him and anyone in the offensive line for Michigan as opposed to Haskins and Bell. And those guys could be legitimate early day 3, maybe late day 2 selections. I don't see the same thing for Andrew, but I do think he can make the NFL draft and maybe go in the 6th round, maybe the 7th round. Something to keep an eye on there. One more player, graduate linebacker or senior graduate linebacker, Josh Ross for them. Ross has been a little bit up and down. He's done a little bit of everything for them in terms of filling the stat sheet for the past 2 years. This is a very confusing linebacker group this year. It's not a very deep linebacker group, in my opinion, or nor a top-heavy one for this linebacker class. I don't think Ross is going to be one of the premier guys, but we saw plenty of dudes who are just average college linebackers go in the mid-rounds of the draft this past year. Ross could certainly fall into that category. And then for Washington, I think Washington actually has more talent than Michigan, at least more top-heavy talent in terms of NFL draft prospects. Starts on offense, junior tight end Cade, Otton, I believe that's how you say the last name. He's been productive. He's been on the radar for a little while now. One of the better tight ends in this all college football at the moment. And in terms of draftable tight ends, he could be the best one. It's really hard to tell with this tight end class. There's a lot of guys out there that are competing for that number 1 spot in terms of tight ends, and this is certainly one of them. Other player I want to talk about on the offense, left tackle Jaxson Kirkland. Could be the best tackle in the draft class. Evan Neal certainly is up there for Alabama, but there's some things that this tackle class really has to prove before we solidify who's number 1. And Kirkland's probably got the best shot of giving Neal a run for his money going into this year. But again, that's based on a heavy projection of an increase in production from Kirkland, so we'll see if that can hold up throughout the season. Defensively, a lot of players we want to mention here. Just focus on Trent McDuffie, junior cornerback for them. This is a guy who could be a 1st-round pick. He's a bit undersized for the NFL, but people love what he does. He's just a tremendous player. If he was 2 inches taller, 2 or 3 inches taller, this guy would probably be a top 10 pick. And he could still go in top 15 selections. People love what they see from him. His versatility, his feistiness. He's going to be a 1st-round pick, most likely, for Washington. Redshirt sophomore cornerbacks, the other corner out there. Kyler Gordon's going to get some looks, but he's going to be more of a late-round selection. He's not going to be on the same level as Trent McDuffie, and he could even go back to school, really, if he wants to. Then there's redshirt sophomore linebacker. Give me a moment to pronounce his name. Edefuan Ulofoshio. I think that's how I say his name. I'm looking up the pronunciation for it. But he's a redshirt sophomore linebacker for them. And they've had quite a few good players in that linebacking core, that small edge rusher level for them. Another player you won't see tonight who should be noted, but again is out with an Achilles injury, unfortunately, is Zion Tupuola-Fetui. Sorry about that. Zion Tupuola-Fetui. He was projected to be one of the best edge rushers in this class, one of the best prospects coming out of the Pac-12. Unfortunately, like I said, tore Achilles a couple months ago, back around the time of the NFL draft in 2020. So we're not going to see him this season, but he was projected to be one of the best edge rushers this entire class. So there you go. That's probably the best group of talent in this game tonight is coming from Washington. It's a little bit top heavy in their side, but they certainly have a couple guys who will go in day 1, day 2. Michigan as well has a couple players to get looks on, but mostly day 3 guys in my opinion. Keep an eye out for those players tonight in the matchup between Michigan and Washington.